Hello there. Ooh, hold on. Sorry. George wanted to be back and hang out with us. George. There. George is going to be on my shoulder. This is Dr. Jason Munsell. It is Tuesday, June the 9th. 1:02 p.m. It is partly cloudy. A white car just went down the road. What I wanted to do, hopefully, we're all falling for George, and George just okay. What I'm doing for this very first chapter, this is the lesson on the very first chapter. I hope that you read the syllabus, and I hope that you have looked at the other stuff. Again, all this stuff is going to be somewhat asynchronous, which means you can sort of do it whenever you want to do it. But I don't want you to get too far behind. Of course, if you wanted to do all the stuff during the weekend, that's cool as well. It's up to you. But I will put some, I'm not going to do a PowerPoint for this. A lot of these things I'll just sort of put notes for your reading to help you understand the reading. And hopefully, as I sort of go through and discuss some of this stuff, you will also better understand what's going on here in this very first book. So I'm going to put, and basically just go through this on KC, just some bullet points that help or hopefully capture what I think are the important ideas growing from Chapter 1 in our very first book. Again, this is Presidents Creating the Presidency, Deeds Done in Words by Carlin Corse Campbell and Kathleen Hall Jameson. It's a weighty book. It's awesome. There's George W. Bush. He's talking, folks. He don't like the evildoers. And hopefully you have done the Twitter stuff, or got the Twitter account and the Tumblr. I have put links to my own Twitter account on KC, as well as I actually decided to create a brand new blog just for this class, and so I've also put that link on KC. So my hope is, and several of you have already done this, I just haven't had the time to put your link up, but if you all would email me and let me know what your Twitter account is and what your Tumblr is, I can put those links so other people can go straight to them and follow you. Now, one of the things I know a lot of you do social media. If for some reason you're in a situation where you don't want to use social media, you feel uncomfortable using social media. I know a couple of you have already emailed me about certain situations. Please email me, because I can find alternative things for you to do. If you don't want to be out and about publicly on the internet, I'm all about being as what's the word? Generous as I possibly can, and open to multiple possibilities, so long as you are considering classwork and everything like that. But so if you have some sort of religious disagreement with Twitter or Tumblr, or if you have in a certain situation where you don't want to use those social media outlets or can't, please just let me know and we'll figure something out. So that's that, and also remember that the stuff due to me for this first week is not due until Sunday, but you can certainly do it at any time. And also the first thread is on, and you can find that thread through forums on our KC shell. It should be on the left side. And the first prompt is basically, what's your take on the idea of the rhetorical presidency, which is, again, the very first chapter of the book. It grows out of that. So let me just sort of go through this. I'll try to be somewhat brief, and hopefully also maybe either later on today or at some point tomorrow afternoon, get some stuff up on the inaugural address, and I might actually have a PowerPoint for that, and maybe a little exercise for you, because exercise is good for you. So the basic stuff here, and by the way, when you're reading, one of the reasons why you can't write in like rented books, can you? I don't know all that process. And e-books, I mean, it's really hard to write on the screen. I mean, I know you can do digital stuff, but one of the things that I always do when I read is, particularly academic books, I go paragraph by paragraph. And so as you sort of see here, or you can, I circle things that I think are important. I go paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, and I try to sort of figure out what the main point of each paragraph is before I move to the next paragraph. You need to be an active reader, not just sort of, George Washington, hey, I'm in there. So that might be something that if you're in a situation where you could do that, that might be helpful to help you read more critically and more closely. But that's sort of what I do. And so, I refer to specific paragraphs in here, and that's simply because this is the way I do it. Okay, so the first big point of all this, going through, again, the first part of this very first chapter. I feel like Schoolhouse Rock here, sort of reminding you of basic civic lessons or things that perhaps, hopefully, you learned in elementary school. There are 3 branches of government. But basically, okay, so the founders created the structure of government. We know what it is. We've got these 3 branches: the executive, the judicial, the legislative. And the idea is that all of these branches are sort of infused, as I say, with rhetoric. The process of who is supposed to do what and who has the power, it's a process of negotiation, because the Constitution never really set everything in detail in stone. Folks who think that are dumb. But in any case, so when we're thinking about what does a president do? What do members of Congress do? What does the judiciary do? What are their roles? All that stuff, in a way, it just simply wasn't spelled out in the Constitution. So what we have done is through discourse, through rhetoric, through speeches and other forms of discourse, we have sort of figured out or created or crafted or framed, whatever the heck you want to say, the idea of the presidency. What is the presidency? What does the president do? How much power does the president have? How much power does Congress have? How much power? All that stuff has been negotiated throughout the course of the history of the United States. So, and a lot of this stuff I'm just sort of quoting, but basically, and I think this might be a quote, but maybe it's not. As it now exists, I say, the presidency is an amalgamation of roles and practices shaped by what presidents have done and said. And an awareness of these roles and practices and capacities shape the workings of the incumbent. So what Obama does and what we think Obama, his role, his power, and everything like that has been he has inherited, in a sense, sort of a pattern, a way, a norm of doing things that has been sort of rhetorically constructed or crafted. You see the struggles right now between, folks in Congress saying that the president has too much power, or whether it's trade agreements or whatever. So it's this constant negotiation. So again, it's not all spelled out in the Constitution. So what we think is really the roles of all these folks have been structured. And how's that stuff been structured? Through talk, through what presidents have said and done, what Congress has said and done, what the Supreme Court has said and done, etc., 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 etc. So the next little bullet point is then the roles and the practices of all these different branches of government are fluid. Nothing is fixed. And so we always see, for the most part, since Washington and onward, it depends on the president, but the president has tried through discourse to assert power, create power, to expand power. And all those expansions, whether it be through war rhetoric or through constituting the public in a particular way through an inaugural address, the expansion of power happens through discourse. And that's the way our authors are approaching the idea of the rhetorical presidency, right? That's what it means. What we think about what the president is a rhetorical construction. It is shaped and framed and defined through the words and phrases that the president uses, and we use as we shape and frame the president. So, paragraph 7, I say in that very first section, is particularly important, and that's then I say, and then also chapters 10, and 11, and 12. So pretty much every single word in this book is magical. Watch this. Because, wow, fascinating. That's an important word. Perfectly. As. Important words. Every single word in this book is important. So paragraph 7 basically says this: although the assertion of presidential prerogative relies on the rhetorical practices of each president's predecessors, executive power has grown in fits and starts, consolidated as it is appropriated by successors and accepted by other branches of government, or conversely curtailed by the Supreme Court or Congress. When, for example, Harry Truman assumed the right to take over the steel mills in the early 1952, he asserted his rights to do so in a speech to the nation, among other places. When the court ruled in Youngstown Steel versus Sawyer that the president had overstepped his constitutional authority, that moment, too, was marked rhetorically. And the most important of the opinions offered by the majority, Justice Robert H. Jackson, noted that because Congress had considered granting Truman this power and decided to withhold it, the president claimed was blah, 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 blah. So all that stuff, and there's lots of different examples here, it's basically the idea is that power is negotiated rhetorically through talk, through words, through discourse, through speeches, etc., etc., etc. I mean, you just, like in paragraph 10 says, throughout history, as these examples illustrate, the U.S. government has been a delicately interdependent system, and governance has been a dance. I love that idea. It's a dance among the three branches, choreographed in broad movements by the Constitution, but also the discourse. And then it talks about how the Constitution paragraph 11 spells out what the branches are supposed to do, but paragraph 12, what these provisions mean in practice has been decided on a case-by-case basis in the push and pull of rhetoric by and among those speaking for the three branches of government. When a right was asserted by one branch and that assertion was permitted to stand, it gradually came to be assumed, and as such had the capacity to be a starting premise in subsequent contests between the branches. So again, long history of rhetoric, negotiation, debate, sort of, we have inherited a long tradition of debate and discourse, and so what we now see right now as the roles of the three branches of government is it has been rhetorically constituted and will continue to change, and as until humanity dies off in about 100 years. So that's the first bit. Then also Campbell and Jameson talk about obviously rhetorical types or genres, and that they have, for the most part, emerged organically. There's a lot of stuff in the Constitution that it doesn't really say exactly what. There are certain mandates like an annual message, but a lot of that stuff has been more sort of through practice. And so that's the next bullet point. And then basically one of the things that I think is